everybody, it's Brandon and I'm back with another real discussion. So, I'm so sick of the narrative that is being pervaded out there. I'm so sick of the victim mentality that exists in the minds of so many people in this country. And I think it's time that we really take a look at and highlight the problems that's really facing the black community in America. And I'm going to give you a hint. Racism isn't even in the top 10. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about what's going on today in America. We're not going to talk about the abuses and the injustices of 400 years ago, or in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, or even the 80s. It's not about the horrible things that happened, because those things were horrible. What was done was wrong. But that really has no bearing on what we're talking about today, which is what the reality is for a black man in America today, 2020. And what are the problems that we're facing as a community. And frankly, the problems that we're facing is the same problem that everyone else is facing, but we're going to get to that in a minute. And we're going to try to squash this victim mentality that is out there using a little something called facts and figures. And I'm going to try to talk to you guys reasonably, but I really think it's time that we have really a real discussion. So the first thing is, as a black man in America, name something that as a black man in America that I cannot do because of the color of my skin. I can go to any school that I have the means to pay for. Went to Catholic school. Private school. Family was able to pay for it. So there's no schools that is forbidding me from getting in because of the color of my skin. I can work wherever I want to work. I can open my own business. I'm able to vote, to have a say. I am able to earn whatever level of money that my talent and ability gives me the opportunity to make. You have a black man who was elected president of the United States, winning the popular vote each time. Record turnouts. And quite frankly, the majority of the people that did not care for him not because of the color of his skin, but because in this country, if you're a Republican and a Democrat, it's almost like they feel like you're obligated to dislike each other. And quite frankly, if you really look at it, they did the same thing to Obama that they tried to do with Clinton. So again, the color of my skin does not stop me from doing anything at all that I want to do. I believe that is a fact that pretty much anyone can agree to. That there's no ceiling anymore like there used to be. I am married to a wonderful woman who happens to be of a different skin color than me. We have 3 beautiful mixed children. And we're able to live our lives in relative peace and comfort. There's no crosses being burned. There's no night riders coming in and pulling people out of their houses. I can expect the same thing when I walk out my door that anyone else can. And that is the reality of the situation. Now, I'm not talking about, again, education rates and it's all due to this and none of that. I'm talking about just as a black person, what are my obstacles that I'm facing? What am I denied the right and the ability to do based on the color of my skin? And the answer is nothing. That immediately takes most of the excuses out. So when I hear people say, man, I can't get a job, that's not because of racism. That's not because they don't hire black people. That's because of something in you. The way you interview, your job history, something. The sky is the limit. The battle, the dream is here. You just have all of these people that don't want to accept it because they like playing the victim. They like being able to look out and blame outside influences for the failures in their community and the lack of progress in their life. And it's quite frankly a load of bull jive. Since I'm trying not to cuss, bull jive. A black man can be anything they want to be in this country, and that is beautiful. That's why I love this country. And any divide and discrepancy in that is usually based on invalid information or other contributing factors. And we're going to talk about that. I'm going to invite someone you may know named Barack Obama to share his opinion on that, because I think that it is kind of poignant that you have this man who is so beloved sharing some of the same sentiments. But I am telling you, you have to get out of this victim mentality. It gets you nowhere. And you hear it a lot with some of the people who've been successful, and they say, man, I don't know what you're talking about. It's all about being willing to bet on yourself and having the ability to see things through. That's the reality of what life is today in this country. And it's a beautiful thing. And the only thing that people can say is, there's all these racists out there. So, say there are. That has no bearing on the topic at hand. You can still do whatever you want. And the people always push back on that. And they talk about, well, look at how we're treated by the police. And we've done videos on that. There's no data that backs that up at all. Well, we're disproportionately represented in the incarcerated in the prison system. We're disproportionately uneducated. We're disproportionately in poverty. And I am going to tell you the reason why. Because we have far higher rates of teenage pregnancy. Because we have such a lack of fathers in our community. And if you think, man, Brandon, you're just perpetuating the stereotype, let's see what Barack Obama has to say on this particular subject. Let's look at it. Of all the rocks we build upon which we build our lives, we are reminded today that family is the most important. And we are called to recognize and honor how critical every father is to that foundation. They are teachers and coaches. They are mentors and role models. They are examples of success and men who constantly push us towards it. But if we're honest with ourselves, we'll admit that too many fathers are missing. They have abandoned their responsibilities, acting like boys instead of men, and the foundation of our families are weaker because of it. You and I know this is true in the African American community. We know that more than half of all black children live in single parent households, a number that has doubled since I was a kid. We know the statistics that children of all races who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime. 9 times more likely to drop out of schools, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. There's your discrepancy right now. There's your disproportionate numbers right there. That's from Obama, President of the United States of America, and he's saying that the biggest problem facing our communities is a lack of fathers. That is the disproportionate numbers of incarceration, of poverty. He goes on and he says a lot, and I'm going to drop the full text of the speech down in a link. But he says that we need to raise our children. You have these mothers raising children by themselves, and they're not able to live their own American dream because they're over there fighting to survive. They don't have the dual incomes that make it possible to move out and live in a slightly bigger, better area. They can't take certain good jobs because they don't have the child care to be able to go out and work those jobs. They can't provide the supervision and education needed and the discipline needed to keep our kids in line. And so the kids run around and they find their fathers, they find the people that they look up to out in the streets. If you want to make Black Lives Matter, the number one thing you can do is go out and be with your kids. That is the biggest problem facing all our communities, but especially the black community. And it's time that we owned up to that. It's time that we stop blaming all these outside influences and not look at it and think to ourselves, did I have my dad? Did my dad teach me? Was he in my life? And then start thinking, man, what would it have been like? What would I have learned faster if I had that person in my life? I would not be where I am today without my family, who kept me out of trouble, who provided support, who has provided child care, wisdom and knowledge. The family unit is what's most important to the success of our children. And if you don't believe me, look at every other minority group in this country, and they don't have the same numbers that we do. Why? Because they don't have that issue of not having the family unit together. Stop making excuses. Go out, take care of your own, take control of your own destiny, and see how far you can go.